May 13th, 1971. Detroit, Motown Records. Stevie Wonder turns 21 years old, and with that birthday comes something the music industry didn't see coming. The expiration of a contract signed when he was a child. A contract that gave Motown control over everything. What he recorded, who produced it, when it was released, how it sounded. For 10 years, Stevie Wonder had been little Stevie, the blind kid with the harmonica, the child prodigy Motown could mold and package and sell. But on May 13th, 1971, little Stevie died, and the man who replaced him walked into Motown's offices with a demand that would reshape popular music for the next decade. Creative control, full artistic freedom, the right to produce his own records, to choose his own musicians, to build albums instead of chasing singles, to use technology nobody at Motown understood yet. And if they said no, he'd walk. This is the story of how Stevie Wonder took over the 1970s from a keyboard, not by being the best musician, by being the smartest negotiator, by understanding that the future of music wasn't in Motown's assembly line. It was in a room full of synthesizers that sounded like science fiction, and by proving that when you give an artist control, they don't just make hits, they redefine what a hit can be. It starts with the cage Motown built around him. In the 1960s, Motown was a machine, the most efficient hit factory in American music. Writers in one room, producers in another, session musicians who could cut 3 songs before lunch, and artists who showed up, sang what they were told, and went home. It worked. Motown dominated the charts, changed the sound of American radio, proved that black music could cross over to white audiences without compromising its soul. But that system had a cost. Artists weren't architects. They were components, replaceable parts in a machine designed to manufacture hits. You didn't make albums at Motown, you made singles. And if you wanted to experiment, to push boundaries, to try something the producers didn't understand, the answer was always the same. Stay in your lane. Do what works. Don't confuse the audience. For most Motown artists, that was the deal. You got hits, you got fame, you got money, and in exchange, you gave up control. But Stevie Wonder was different, because Stevie Wonder had something Motown couldn't replace: a voice, a skill set, a public image so powerful that losing him would hurt more than bending. And on May 13th, 1971, he used that leverage. The old contract expired, and instead of signing a new one immediately, Stevie walked away. Not forever, just long enough to make Motown nervous, long enough to make them realize they were negotiating with an adult now, not a child they could control. And when he came back to the table, the terms were different. He wanted creative control, the right to produce his own music, the freedom to experiment, to fail, to build something that didn't fit into Motown's formula. Motown didn't want to give it to him, but they couldn't afford to lose him, so they bent, not completely, but enough. And that's when Stevie Wonder stopped being a hitmaker and became something more dangerous, an architect. But control wasn't enough, because control without tools is just freedom to fail. And Stevie knew that if he was going to break free from Motown's sound, he needed a sound they couldn't manufacture. Enter Tonto, the original new timbral orchestra, a massive analog synthesizer system built by 2 engineers named Malcolm Cecil and Robert Margouleff, a beast of circuitry and cables and oscillators that took up an entire room. The biggest, most complex synthesizer in the world at the time. And Stevie heard it and knew immediately. This was the weapon, not a keyboard, a universe, a machine that could create sounds nobody had heard before, textures that didn't exist in nature, rhythms that felt like the future, and melodies that bypassed the brain and went straight to the nervous system. Motown's producers didn't understand Tonto. They didn't know how to control it. They didn't know how to fit it into their system. And that's exactly why Stevie wanted it. Because if Motown couldn't manufacture the sound, they couldn't replace him. If the music required Stevie's vision, Stevie's hands, Stevie's brain, then he wasn't just an artist anymore. He was irreplaceable. And in 1972, he proved it. March 3rd, 1972. Music of My Mind is released. And it doesn't sound like anything Motown has ever put out. It's not a collection of singles. It's an album, a statement, a sonic landscape that moves from track to track like a journey instead of a playlist. The synthesizers aren't background. They're the foundation, the pulse, the language. And Stevie isn't just playing them. He's speaking through them, creating textures and atmospheres and emotions that don't have names yet. Critics don't know what to do with it. Radio doesn't know how to play it. Motown's executives don't know how to sell it. But audiences hear it and understand immediately. This isn't just music. It's evolution. And Stevie isn't done, because Music of My Mind is just the proof of concept. The real takeover is still coming. 1972 turns into 1973, and Stevie is moving faster than the industry can track. He's writing, producing, recording, using Tonto to build sounds that shouldn't exist yet, layering synthesizers over funk rhythms and gospel melodies and social commentary that cuts deeper than anything on the radio. And then comes the song that turns the keyboard into a throne, Superstition. It starts as a collaboration. Stevie writes it with guitarist Jeff Beck in mind, a funk groove built around a clavinet riff that sounds like electricity, sharp, percussive, undeniable. But then Motown hears it, and they make a decision that proves Stevie's power. They don't give it to Beck. They release it under Stevie's name, because they know what Stevie knows. This isn't just a good song, it's a cultural reset, and they're right. Superstition explodes, not just on R&B charts, everywhere. Pop, rock, funk. It crosses every boundary, and the clavinet riff becomes one of the most recognizable sounds in music history. But here's what makes it a power move instead of just a hit. Motown chose Stevie's version over a rock guitarist's version. In 1972, that's a statement. It says Stevie isn't just a black artist making black music for black audiences. He's making music that defines the entire decade. And the keyboard isn't just an instrument anymore. It's a weapon, a stamp, a signature that says, this is what the future sounds like. But the real masterpiece is still coming. August 3rd, 1973. Innervisions is released. And it's not just an album. It's a reckoning. Stevie takes everything he learned from Music of My Mind and Talking Book and pushes it further. The synthesizers are bolder. The lyrics are sharper. The production is tighter. And the subject matter is dangerous. He's writing about politics, about racism, about poverty and violence, and the American dream turning into a nightmare. And he's doing it while still making music that moves bodies, that fills dance floors, that dominates radio. Most artists have to choose. You can be political or you can be popular. You can challenge the system or you can sell records. But Stevie proves you can do both if you're undeniable enough. And Innervisions is undeniable. Critics call it a masterpiece. Audiences make it a commercial success. And the industry starts treating Stevie Wonder like a separate category. Not just an artist, a force. But 3 days after the album drops, everything almost ends. August 6th, 1973, North Carolina. Stevie is riding in a car. A logging truck ahead of them loses part of its load. A log crashes through the windshield, hits Stevie in the head, and he's rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Coma, skull fracture, the kind of injury that ends careers. The kind of injury that makes people ask if he'll ever make music again, if he'll even survive. And for days, the world waits. Not just fans, the entire music industry. Because by 1973, Stevie Wonder isn't just a star. He's proof that artistic freedom works, that control produces greatness, that the old system can be beaten, and if he doesn't come back, that proof dies with him. But he does come back. Slowly, painfully, but he comes back. And when he does, he's not weaker. He's angrier, more focused, more determined to prove that the crash was just an interruption, not an ending. And the music that follows makes the 1970s his decade. Because Stevie doesn't just recover, he escalates. Fulfillingness's first finale, songs in the key of life, albums that don't just dominate charts. They redefine what albums can be, how long they can run, how much they can say, how deeply they can cut. And by the mid-1970s, Motown isn't controlling Stevie anymore. They're following him, trying to keep up, trying to understand how one man with a keyboard and a synthesizer became more powerful than their entire system. And the answer is simple. He understood something Motown didn't want to admit. The old model was dying. The assembly line was breaking down. And the future belonged to artists who could build worlds, not just singles. Stevie didn't just take over the 1970s. He proved that control is the only thing that matters. That if you own your sound, your vision, your process, you don't need the machine. You become the machine. And by the time the decade ends, the music industry has changed. Not because they wanted to, because Stevie forced them to. Artists start demanding creative control. Producers lose power. Albums become the format. And the synthesizer stops being a novelty and becomes a standard. All because one man turned 21 and decided he wasn't going to be little Stevie anymore. Here's what the music industry learned from Stevie Wonder in the 1970s. You can't cage genius. You can try. You can write contracts and control sessions and dictate sound. But if the artist is undeniable enough, smart enough, and patient enough, they'll break free. And when they do, they won't just make hits. They'll rewrite the rules. Stevie Wonder didn't need Motown's approval. He needed their platform. And once he had control of that platform, he used it to prove that the best music doesn't come from formulas. It comes from freedom. The birthday that broke the machine wasn't just about a contract expiring. It was about an artist realizing his power, understanding that the label needed him more than he needed them, and using that leverage to demand something the industry thought was dangerous: artistic control. And when they gave it to him, he didn't waste it. He didn't make safe records. He didn't play it careful. He built tanto into a language. He turned the clavinet into a cultural signature. He made synthesizers sound like the future. And he proved that an album could be political and funky and experimental and commercial all at once. That's not luck. That's strategy. That's understanding power. That's knowing when to walk away and when to come back. That's forcing a system built on control to give up control, and then proving they were wrong to hold on to it in the first place. By the end of the 1970s, Stevie Wonder had done something no other Motown artist managed. He escaped, not by leaving, by rewriting the terms, by making Motown bend to him instead of bending to Motown. And the music he made in that decade didn't just define his career. It defined the decade. It defined what R&B could be, what funk could be, what pop could be, what albums could be. And it all started with a birthday, a contract, and a man who understood that the system only has power if you stay in the room. Stevie Wonder stood up, walked out, and when he came back, the room was his. May 13th, 1971. A 21-year-old walks into Motown and demands control. August 3rd, 1973. Innervisions drops and redefines what music can say. August 6th, 1973. A car crash almost ends everything, but it doesn't, because the takeover wasn't about one album. It was about proving that when you give an artist freedom, they don't just make music, they make history. The system didn't lose because Stevie was louder. It lost because he was smarter and patient and undeniable. And the 1970s belonged to him, not because he played the keyboard better than anyone else, but because he understood that the keyboard wasn't the weapon. Control was.